Welcome to the What Does Science Say channel. Today, we're embarking on a deep dive into a topic that truly touches millions of lives and sparks countless questions: Alzheimer's disease and dementia. It's a complex area, often shrouded in confusion and concern, and our mission today is to bring you, well, some clarity.
That's right. Many of you might wonder about the crucial difference between, say, normal aging and more serious cognitive decline, or perhaps how Alzheimer's fits into the broader picture of dementia. We've pulled together a stack of reliable sources, and our goal is to cut through all that noise, really unravel the mysteries of these conditions. We want to uncover their earliest, often subtle, warning signs and empower you with the most current scientific insights into what can truly be done, to manage, maybe even prevent them.
All right, let's unpack this common confusion right from the start then. What exactly is dementia, and how does Alzheimer's fit into that picture? Are they the same thing, or?
That's a great place to begin because the terms are often used interchangeably, but they really shouldn't be. See, dementia isn't a single disease. It's a broad sort of umbrella term. Think of it as a syndrome. It describes a collection of symptoms. Things like severe memory loss, difficulty learning new information, impaired intellectual function that makes independent daily living challenging. Crucially, a person with dementia is still awake and alert, meaning there's no impairment of arousal, unlike someone, say, in a coma. And here's a really vital point. Dementia is not a normal part of aging. While our brains do change with age, true dementia is a significant progressive decline beyond what's expected.
Okay, that's a really clear distinction, dementia as the set of symptoms. So within that broad category, what's the most common cause of these symptoms, the one we typically hear about, and how does it fundamentally differ from other types?
Excellent question. Alzheimer's disease is by far the most common cause of dementia. It accounts for maybe 60 to 70% of cases worldwide.
Wow, that high.
Yes, it's significant. Alzheimer's is a specific neurodegenerative disease. That means it causes the progressive loss and eventual death of neurons, the brain's critical thinking cells, particularly in the cortex. And this loss of neurons directly leads to those dementia symptoms we just described. But like you said, it's not the only cause. Other common types include Lewy body dementia, vascular dementia, and frontotemporal dementia. And sometimes people can even have a mix, like Alzheimer's combined with vascular dementia, especially if they have underlying conditions like, say, high blood pressure.
That makes perfect sense. So Alzheimer's is the most frequent culprit under that dementia umbrella. Okay. Now, to truly understand what's actually happening inside the brain with Alzheimer's, we often hear about plaques and tangles. Can you break down what these are and why they wreak such havoc?
Right, this is where the science gets really fascinating and a bit complex, but let's break it down. At its core, Alzheimer's involves the development of two abnormal protein structures that truly disrupt normal brain function. First, we have beta amyloid plaques. Imagine these as sticky, sort of microscopic clumps that form outside the brain cells, the neurons. Normally, there's a protein in our brain called APP, and it gets cut up and cleared away. But in Alzheimer's, it seems like faulty processing creates these sticky fragments called amyloid beta monomers. These monomers then clump together, forming the plaques that get between neurons, and that impedes communication.
Impeding communication, right, like blocking the signals.
Exactly, blocking or disrupting the signals. They can also trigger inflammation, which damages surrounding cells, and they can even deposit around blood vessels, weakening them.
Okay, so those sticky blockades are happening outside the cells, but what about inside the neurons? That's where the tangles come in, isn't it? Disrupting things from within.
Precisely. The second destructive element is neurofibrillary tangles, and these form inside the neuron itself. They are made of a protein called tau. Now, normally tau acts kind of like railway ties, stabilizing tiny tracks called microtubules.
Okay, like the cell's internal transport system.
That's a great way to put it. These microtubules deliver vital nutrients and molecules throughout the neuron. But in Alzheimer's, it's thought that the beta amyloid plaques outside somehow trigger changes in tau. Tau changes shape, detaches from the microtubules, and then clumps together inside the cell into these dense, insoluble tangles.
So it's like the tracks collapse and the whole transport system breaks down.
Exactly. The tracts collapse, everything gets stuck, and the neuron essentially gets sick and eventually dies because it can't get the nutrients it needs or transport essential components.
That's quite a picture of cellular chaos. A tangled mess inside, a sticky blockade outside preventing signals from getting through.
It really is. And over time, as more and more neurons die, the brain tissue actually shrinks. We call this brain atrophy.
You can see that on scans.
Yes, you can often see it on MRI or CT scans in later stages. This silent progressive damage ultimately leads to that profound loss of memory, learning ability, problem solving, judgment, and communication skills that characterize Alzheimer's.
What's striking is how much of this can happen silently, for years even, before symptoms really show up.
It is, and that really underscores the challenge, the urgent need for earlier diagnostic tools and interventions before too much damage is done.
So given this silent destructive process, why? Why does this happen to some people and not others? What does science tell us about the causes and the risk factors?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? The exact cause isn't fully understood, but it's definitely considered multifactorial. It's a complex interplay of genetics, lifestyle, and environmental factors. The biggest single risk factor by far is simply age.
Just getting older.
Just getting older. Your risk increases significantly as you age. It affects around, say, 1% of people age 60, 65, but that jumps dramatically to about 50%, half of people over 85.
Wow, okay, age is unavoidable. But what about specific genetic links? Are some people just inherently more vulnerable?
Yes, genetics absolutely play a role, but it's important to differentiate here. About 5 to 10% of cases are what we call familial Alzheimer's. These are linked to specific dominant gene mutations, PSEN1, PSEN2, or having trisomy 21, which causes Down syndrome. These often lead to much earlier onset of the disease.
Early onset, right.
Yes. For example, the gene for that amyloid precursor protein, APP, is on chromosome 21. So if you have an extra copy, like in Down syndrome, you potentially make more APP, leading to more plaques earlier. But most cases are sporadic, late-onset Alzheimer's, and here the APOE4 gene allele is the most significant genetic risk factor we know of.
APOE4.
Right. This variant seems to be less effective at breaking down that beta amyloid, making plaque buildup more likely over time. But having the gene doesn't guarantee you'll get Alzheimer's, it just increases the risk.
That's a really crucial distinction, a risk factor, not a destiny. Yeah. And beyond age and genes, what about our daily lives, our health?
Huge factors there. We observe a gender difference. Women are statistically more likely to develop Alzheimer's than men. About 1 in 6 women versus 1 in 10 men.
Why is that, just living longer?
That's part of it. Women generally live longer. But research into hormonal factors and other biological differences is ongoing. It's complex. Then lifestyle and health conditions are hugely significant. Anything that impacts your cardiovascular health seems to impact brain health too.
Like heart disease.
Exactly. Smoking, diabetes, heart disease itself includes high blood pressure, obesity. These are all recognized risk factors. Basically, what's good for the heart is often good for the brain. And more recent research is highlighting things like poor sleep quality and even untreated hearing loss as significant contributors.
Hearing loss, really?
Yes, the connection is becoming clearer. It might be due to reduced brain stimulation or shared underlying pathways. And there's even emerging data suggesting environmental factors like climate warming and air pollution might play a role.
Gosh, it really is a complex web then. It's not just one thing, but this interplay of our genes, our age, how we live, maybe even where we live.
Precisely.
Yeah.
It's a cascade of factors that seem to build up over a lifetime for many people.
Okay, so many people assume memory loss is the only sign of Alzheimer's, the main thing to watch for. But the sources we looked at highlight a much broader, sometimes more insidious range of early indicators. What should we really be looking for? And why are these specific signs perhaps missed sometimes?
This is so important because recognizing these early whispers can make a huge difference. And you're right, it's much more than just memory. But first, a vital reminder. These are warning signs, not a definite diagnosis. If you notice these in yourself or a loved one, a proper medical evaluation is absolutely essential to rule out other possibilities.
Right, always see a doctor. Got it.
Okay, so one primary sign is indeed poor short-term memory. But it's not just, where did I put my keys occasionally. It's more about forgetting recent events entirely, asking the same questions over and over, or repeating the same story, sometimes charmingly, like you mentioned the beans and greens story. They might genuinely not recall having said it minutes before. Long-term memory often stays intact longer.
Yeah, that beans and greens example really stuck with me. It highlights how easily we might just brush off these subtle shifts as, oh, just being a bit forgetful today. What else?
Another really crucial early sign is difficulty with instrumental activities of daily living, or IADLs.
IADLs.
Yes, these are the more complex, everyday tasks that require planning and sequencing. Things like managing finances, paying bills, grocery shopping, following a familiar recipe, maybe planning a trip. When someone starts struggling with these multi-step tasks they used to handle easily, that's a significant red flag, and closely related to something called anosognosia. It's a lack of insight, or a genuine inability for the person to recognize their own difficulties. It's not denial or stubbornness. It's a brain change affecting their self-perception. And this can be incredibly frustrating for families, can't it? Because it looks like the person is just refusing to admit there's a problem.
Oh, absolutely. I can only imagine how challenging that must be for everyone involved. What about other behavioral changes? Things that seem out of character?
Definitely. Misplacing things and then accusing others is quite common. This isn't just losing things, it's putting them in very unusual spots, like ice cream in the oven or keys in the sugar bowl, and then genuinely believing someone else moved them or stole them.
That sounds distressing.
It can be.
Mm-hmm.
Also, trouble with speech and language, sometimes called aphasia, difficulty naming common objects, finding the right words, maybe stopping mid-sentence and unsure how to continue. They might use circumlocutions, like describing the thing you write with instead of saying pen.
Like the Bruce Willis situation brought to light.
Exactly. That raised awareness about aphasia, which can certainly be a symptom of underlying conditions like Alzheimer's or frontotemporal dementia. We also see confusion with time and place, losing track of the date, the day of the week, the season, or even the year. They might forget where they are or how they got there, even in familiar places, which can sometimes lead to wandering.
These signs go so much deeper than simple forgetfulness. They really impact daily functioning and how a person interacts with the world.
They absolutely do. And there are more. Look for uncharacteristic behaviors and personality changes. Someone who is always cautious might start making risky financial decisions. Someone usually polite might blurt out inappropriate comments. Or, conversely, a very outgoing person might become withdrawn, quiet, and lose interest in hobbies. Less common as very early signs, but definitely possible, are developing delusions or hallucinations.
Right, the false beliefs or seeing things.
Exactly. Delusions are fixed false beliefs, often paranoid, like believing family members are stealing or that their spouse is unfaithful. Hallucinations are sensory experiences. Others don't share seeing people or animals that aren't there, for example. This is particularly common in Lewy body dementia, but can occur in Alzheimer's too. And finally, watch for impaired or poor judgment, making consistently bad decisions, perhaps falling for scams, or neglecting personal hygiene and a general withdrawal from social interactions, maybe because they're aware of their difficulties and feel embarrassed or overwhelmed.
Wow. That's quite a comprehensive list. It really paints a picture of how pervasive these changes can be, affecting thinking, behavior, personality, everything. It makes you wonder then how this typically unfolds over time. These changes don't happen overnight, right? How does Alzheimer's usually progress?
That's right, it's a progressive disease, meaning it worsens over time. But the rate and the specific symptoms can vary quite a bit from person to person. We generally talk about stages, though they can overlap. The very first stage is actually called preclinical Alzheimer's disease.
Preclinical, meaning no symptoms.
Exactly. Brain changes, those plaques and tangles are starting to accumulate, but the person has absolutely no noticeable symptoms. This stage can last for years, even decades. It's usually only identified in research settings using brain scans or biomarker tests. A major goal of research right now is to find ways to detect the disease reliably in this stage, because ideally, that's when interventions might be most effective, before significant cell loss.
That makes sense. Catch it before it really takes hold. So, what happens when those first subtle signs do start to appear?
That leads us to mild cognitive impairment, or MCI. Here, the person or their family does notice subtle changes in memory or thinking, maybe forgetting conversations or appointments more often. But, and this is key for MCI, these changes don't significantly interfere with their everyday activities or independence. They can still manage their daily life.
So, it's noticeable, but not disabling yet.
Correct. It's estimated about half of people with MCI go on to develop dementia within about 5 years, but some remain stable, and a few might even revert to normal cognition, especially if the MCI was due to a treatable cause. Then we move into mild Alzheimer's disease, which is considered early-stage dementia. Now, the cognitive problems, especially memory loss and maybe language difficulties, become more noticeable and do start to interfere with daily functioning.
This is often when diagnosis happens.
Yes, this is frequently when people seek medical help and a diagnosis is made. They might still be able to function somewhat independently, but they'll need more reminders, help with complex tasks like finances. They might get lost more easily or show those personality changes we talked about.
Okay. And as the disease progresses from mild?
It moves into moderate Alzheimer's disease or middle stage dementia. This is typically the longest stage. Confusion deepens significantly. Memory loss worsens, affecting both recent and sometimes more distant past events. Individuals need much more help with daily activities, dressing, bathing, grooming. Judgment becomes poorer. Wandering can increase. Unfounded suspicions, agitation, sometimes aggression can emerge, especially later in the day. That's called sundowning.
That sounds like a very challenging stage for caregivers.
It absolutely is. Constant supervision and a great deal of patience and support are required. Finally, we reach severe Alzheimer's disease, or late-stage dementia. In this stage, individuals become largely dependent on others for all aspects of care. They may lose the ability to communicate verbally, to recognize loved ones, to control movement. Walking becomes difficult, then impossible. Swallowing difficulties, dysphagia are common, increasing the risk of choking or aspiration pneumonia. Incontinence occurs.
It sounds like they need total care at that point.
Yes, often around-the-clock care. They may become bedridden, and their vulnerability to infections like pneumonia increases significantly. Pneumonia is often the ultimate cause of death for people in this late stage.
It's truly a devastating journey, impacting every aspect of life, from thinking to basic physical functions. Understanding these stages must be so important for families and healthcare providers to anticipate needs and plan care.
Incredibly important. It allows for more informed decisions, realistic expectations, and proactive planning for support and safety.
So, with such varied symptoms and this progressive decline, how is Alzheimer's actually diagnosed? You mentioned ruling things out, but what confirms it? And once it is confirmed, what can really be done?
Right. As we touched on, there's no single definitive test while someone is alive, short of a brain biopsy, which is usually only done post-mortem for confirmation or research. So, diagnosis relies on a comprehensive evaluation. The first critical step is ruling out other potential causes for the cognitive symptoms.
What kinds of things can mimic dementia?
Oh, quite a few. Things like thyroid problems, vitamin deficiencies, especially B12, infections like UTIs or pneumonia, especially in older adults, depression, side effects from medications, sleep disorders, even normal pressure hydrocephalus, or rarely, a brain tumor or stroke.
So, a thorough medical workup is essential first.
Absolutely. That includes a detailed medical and family history, a physical and neurological exam, blood tests, maybe urine tests. Then, doctors use cognitive assessments. These can range from brief screening tools like the mini-cog or the GPCOG to more detailed tests like the Mini Mental State Examination, MMSE, or the Montreal Cognitive Assessment, NCCADI. There are also self-administered tests like the SAGE test, which people can even take online. It takes about 15 minutes and bring to their doctor.
What do these tests measure?
They assess various cognitive functions, memory, orientation, time and place, attention, language, visual spatial skills, judgment, problem solving. Repeating these tests over time can help track changes. Brain imaging is also a key part. MRI or CT scans are often used primarily to rule out other structural problems like tumors or strokes, but they can also show patterns of brain atrophy suggestive of Alzheimer's in later stages.
And what about those newer tests, the ones looking for the actual Alzheimer's pathology?
Yes, those are becoming more common, especially in specialized centers or research. Amyloid PET scans can directly visualize beta amyloid plaques in the living brain, and analyzing cerebrospinal fluid, CSF, obtained via spinal tap can measure levels of beta amyloid and tau proteins. Lower amyloid and higher tau levels in the CSF are biomarkers associated with Alzheimer's. Plus, exciting progress is being made with blood tests designed to detect amyloid or tau markers, which could make diagnosis much simpler and more accessible in the future.
Okay, so the diagnosis is a careful piecing together of all this information. Once Alzheimer's is diagnosed, what about treatment? Is there anything that can stop it or slow it down?
That's the crucial question. Currently, there is no cure for Alzheimer's disease. The damage caused by the disease cannot be reversed. However, there are medications that can help manage symptoms, and some may temporarily slow the worsening of symptoms for some people.
What are these medications?
There are two main classes approved. First, cholinesterase inhibitors, drugs like donepezil, rivastigmine, and galantamine. These are typically used for mild to moderate Alzheimer's. They work by boosting levels of acetylcholine, a neurotransmitter important for memory and thinking, which is often depleted in Alzheimer's.
Do they work well?
They can provide modest improvements in cognitive symptoms or help stabilize them for a period, maybe 6 to 12 months on average, for about half the people who take them. But they don't stop the underlying disease progression. Side effects can include nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, fatigue, sometimes muscle cramps, or a slowed heart rate. The second class is NMDA receptor antagonists. The main drug here is memantine.
And how does that work?
It's generally used for moderate to severe Alzheimer's, often in combination with the cholinesterase inhibitor. It works differently by regulating glutamate, another neurotransmitter that can become overactive and damage nerve cells in Alzheimer's. Like the cholinesterase inhibitors, memantine can offer modest benefits for symptoms but doesn't halt the disease. Side effects might include headache, dizziness, confusion, or constipation.
Okay, so those help manage symptoms. What about treatments targeting the plaques and tangles themselves?
That's where newer treatments come in, specifically monoclonal antibodies targeting beta amyloid. Aducanumab was the first approved in a while, though its approval was controversial due to questions about its effectiveness and side effects like brain swelling or bleeding. More recently, drugs like lecanemab and potentially donanemab seem to show clearer evidence of removing amyloid plaques and modestly slowing cognitive decline in people with early-stage Alzheimer's or MCI due to Alzheimer's.
So these actually target the underlying pathology.
Yes, they are designed to clear amyloid. They offer some hope for slowing progression, maybe by several months over the course of an 18-month trial, but they are not cures. They also require regular 5E infusions, monitoring with brain scans due to risks, and are very expensive. Access can be an issue.
So it seems early diagnosis is really key, not just for planning, but maybe for accessing these newer treatments that work best in the earliest stages.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Early and accurate diagnosis gives people the best chance to understand their condition, plan for the future, and potentially benefit from treatments that might slow things down, even modestly. It's about maximizing quality of life for as long as possible.
Right. Gaining that precious time. Okay, so beyond medication, which seems to offer management rather than a cure right now, what else can individuals and families do? What about non-medical approaches to support someone and enhance their quality of life? It sounds like these are just as critical, if not more so.
You've hit on a absolutely paramount point. Non-medical interventions and strong caregiver support are often more impactful than medications when it comes to daily functioning, well-being, and overall quality of life. Lifestyle modifications are key, both potentially for prevention earlier in life and certainly for management after diagnosis.
Like diet and exercise.
Exactly. A Mediterranean-style diet rich in fruits, vegetables, nuts, fish, olive oil, whole grains, and low in red meat and processed foods seems beneficial. Eating the rainbow, as they say. It supports cardiovascular health, which we know is linked to brain health. Reducing sugars and unhealthy fats is also important. And regular physical activity. It doesn't have to be intense. Even simple daily walking helps maintain motor function, improves sleep, boosts mood, and can help burn off excess energy, which might reduce restlessness or wandering.
Okay, diet and exercise. What else falls under that lifestyle umbrella?
Sleep is crucial. Poor sleep exacerbates cognitive problems. Stabilizing sleep patterns, addressing issues like sleep apnea, using good sleep hygiene practices, these can make a noticeable difference. Try behavioral interventions before jumping to sleep meds, which can sometimes worsen confusion. Social interaction is vital. Isolation is terrible for brain health. Encourage engagement in activities, visits with family and friends, maybe joining groups or day programs. Even short, regular interactions help.
So keeping them connected.
Absolutely. And mental stimulation. Engaging in activities the person enjoys and can still manage. Maybe listening to music, simple puzzles, looking at photo albums, gardening, card games. While specific brain games might only improve performance on that game, general mental engagement is definitely beneficial.
What about adapting the home environment to make it safer and easier to navigate?
That's critical. Home safety is a major concern, especially regarding falls and wandering. Simple things. Remove clutter and throw rugs. Ensure good lighting, especially on stairs and pathways to the bathroom. Install grab bars in the bathroom. Maybe use nightlights. For wandering, consider locks placed high or low on doors or door alarms. Some families use GPS tracking devices. And maintaining structured daily routines can be very helpful. Predictable schedules for meals, activities, toileting, and rest can reduce anxiety and confusion. Using memory aids like large print calendars, whiteboards for daily schedules, labeled drawers and cupboards, maybe even photos on room doors can help with orientation.
That makes sense, creating a supportive and predictable environment. Communication must also become increasingly challenging. How can families best navigate that?
Communication strategies are essential for reducing frustration for everyone involved. The key is patience and adapting your approach. Use short, simple sentences. Give one instruction at a time. Ask yes-no questions rather than open-ended ones that require complex thought or memory recall.
Like, would you like water? Instead of, what would you like to drink?
Exactly. Allow plenty of time for them to process and respond. Don't rush them. Approach from the front. Make eye contact. Speak clearly and calmly. Use a gentle tone. Nonverbal cues become increasingly important as language fails gestures, pointing, facial expressions, a comforting touch, if appropriate. And critically, try not to argue or correct them if they say something inaccurate, especially about past memories or beliefs. It usually just increases agitation. Instead, try to gently redirect the conversation or respond to the feeling behind their words.
Validate their feelings, even if the facts are wrong.
Yes. Acknowledge their emotion. If they're anxious because they think they need to go to work, even though they're retired, you might say, "It sounds like you're feeling worried about being late," rather than arguing about retirement. Then maybe redirect. "Let's have a cup of tea first." Empathy is crucial. Remember, the changes are due to the disease.
That's incredibly helpful advice. And finally, what about the caregivers? They carry such a heavy load. What support do they need?
Caregiver support is absolutely essential, yet often overlooked. Caring for someone with Alzheimer's is physically and emotionally demanding. Family involvement, where possible, is paramount, sharing the responsibilities. Caregivers often need education and training how to handle challenging behaviors like agitation or refusals, how to assist with personal care respectfully, understanding nutritional needs, especially if swallowing becomes difficult. It's vital for caregivers to recognize the signs of caregiver burnout, exhaustion, irritability, withdrawal, feeling overwhelmed, and to seek help before reaching a crisis point.
What kind of help is available?
Support groups connecting with others in the same situation can be immensely valuable. Respite care services that provide temporary relief for caregivers, maybe for a few hours or a few days. In-home assistance, adult daycare programs. Navigating the financial costs can also be stressful, so exploring insurance coverage, veterans benefits, or local area agency on aging resources is important. Really, the message is caregivers cannot do it alone. They need to prioritize their own health and well-being too, for their own sake and for the person they're caring for. Asking for and accepting help is a sign of strength, not weakness.
It truly sounds like a holistic approach. Focusing on the person with dementia, the environment, and the caregivers offers the best path forward for maintaining dignity and quality of life for as long as possible.
Absolutely. It takes a village, as they say. Medical treatment is one piece, but compassionate care, adaptation, and strong support systems are arguably even more critical day to day. And perhaps a final thought to leave with everyone. If research suggests we might be able to prevent or modify, say, 40% of dementia cases worldwide through managing risk factors and lifestyle interventions earlier in life, what does that tell us about our collective responsibility and indeed our opportunity to invest in our brain health now, regardless of our current age? What one small change could you make today that could potentially add years of quality life to your future, or perhaps to the future of someone you love?
That's a powerful question to reflect on. Thank you for sharing such valuable insights today. And thank you for being with us until the end of this video. Please be sure to subscribe to the What Does Science Say channel and give us energy with your likes and comments. Share your comments with us and send the video to your loved ones so that others can also use it.